Reaching all the way back to 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition. Here is your host of Fate Radio, Kat Hobson.
Welcome to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate magazine. I am so glad that you are joining me tonight because you know what? This is my first show on the X. That's right. We are here. We are having a good time. It is going to just be wonderful being part of the UNX network. I mean, I've got such great company, right? I am really honored to be here. I am looking forward to tonight's show. I know y'all are too, because it is going to be rocking the house. You know, we have been talking for centuries, really. Literally, we're into the second one, about UFOs, about landings, about sightings, about little green men in tin suits, androgynous beings, you name it, it's been applied. UFOs have been legendary. People are terrified of them, intrigued by them. We want to know everything. I've spoken with people who have flown them. I have spoken with people who have run from them. I mean, it doesn't get much deeper of a subject. And tonight's guest is someone that I think has a lot of answers. And if not, there's enough research going into it that we're going to ask why not. I tease, I do. But, you know, I'm really very fortunate to have as a guest Cheryl Costa. Cheryl is an author. She has done so much. She is a former military personnel. We're going to go with person. She is one of the people who has done so much work. She has done a book called The UFO Beat. It's a collection of her UFO newspaper columns, and she has done UFOs in every state, really, and where to find them. It started out as UFO Sightings Desk Reference, and the first one was 2001 to 2020. I am fortunate enough to own that book, and let me tell you, there's so much information. And now she has UFOs in various states and where to find them. You can order your state, and it's fantastic. She has written several other genre of books. She is a playwright. She has done Charmaine's Tales of Wonder. She has written Magical Musings of a Rogue Witch. She is a little bit of everything and always a lot of fun. My guest, Cheryl Costa. Cheryl, I'm so glad you're here.
Kat, it's fun, and I'm delighted to be on your first show on the X. This is terrific.
I know, right? I didn't tell you that at first. So, surprise.
Surprise. Surprise.
Well, you know, we have done a lot of shows together over time, and they're all fascinating to me and my listeners. I mean, you know, you have had quite a lifetime, and almost two of them, you know, and it's, to me, your take on things is fascinating. You know, you and your wife, Linda, have written these books. She is, by the way, great statisticians, great research. The whole experience for y'all has been a lot of fun, I think, and tiring. So I do have to ask, because you had this fantastic column that you were writing, a lot of experiences, talking to a lot of people who were sharing them. What took you from that to writing this massive sightings desk reference?
Well, there are two. There was the one that went from, we published in 2017, which online, if you look it up, it's physically a white book, 8.5 by 11. And it started out, I was writing a newspaper column for the Syracuse New Times, started in June of 2013. Okay. And that was kind of a tough gig to get because I had about 6 or 7 editors throw me out of their office at various newspapers in upstate New York. Get out. I had security escort me to the door, that kind of thing, and called me a kook nut and a crackpot, that kind of thing. And all I was proposing.
Welcome to the UFO world, right?
Yeah, welcome to the UFO world. And it was, the whole flavor of it was, I was proposing. I knew most of the print newspapers did not have the column space to give me a physical column in the printed paper. That requires advertising, okay, to pay for that space. And I was proposing 500, 800 words a week on their online editions, which most newspapers at that point were still trying to develop an audience on their online editions. And so, like I said, everybody chased me out of the office. And finally, a guy by the name of Larry Dietrich, I had worked with him when I was in a technical department at another newspaper, and he had been bought out and retired out of the company as the newspaper was downsizing. And he became the editor-in-chief at the Syracuse New Times, a weekly. And I hadn't even considered a weekly. And he called me up, invited me over for a cup of coffee, and went over to talk. We got talking about the UFO. He had heard I was doing the UFO pitching to various editors, and he had heard a lot of laughter from his colleagues of editors around the state. And he called me in. We sat down and talked, and we were about the same age. So we were comparing some of the books we read as teenagers and young adults back in the late 60s, early 70s. And then he got to a point, 15, 20 minutes into the conversation, he says, I'm the editor-in-chief. I can't write that kind of column, but you can. I'll try you out for a month. And he had this tone like the Dread Pirate Roberts. I'll try you out for a month, And he calls me up 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, and he says, get over here now, I thought, oh, gee, okay, I've had 4 articles. Okay, I had a shot, and I'm late to the meeting. And
that's always helpful.
Oh, yeah. Well, they had the parking lot all torn up. They were repaving the parking lot. And I finally got up there. I'm 10 minutes late to the meeting. I walked in. All the columnists that worked at the paper were around this big conference table, and he's talking to them, and he stops, points at me at the door, and says, there's our rock star.
Oh, mercy.
And I'm going, what do you mean rock star? He says, you've been here 4 weeks, and you're pulling more web page views than all of them combined. I didn't know what to say. You just take a seat,
Right.
And actually, the paper at first there was some animosity toward me since a lot of the other columnists thought it was a silly topic. Okay, but over time they saw the weight of what I was talking about. I treated the topic matter with respect. It wasn't. I never any stories, old stories that I reported and things like that. I always reported it with a level of respect. Okay, no sensation. If I was reporting a story that maybe happened last week or something like that, I just reported it like another thing that happened in town. The fire across town, the car wreck 2 blocks away, the house that got robbed in the next neighborhood over. I treated it just like any other story, and I got a lot of nice commentary from readers that they liked the idea that I was doing very matter of fact, like it's just a normal piece of news out there. And so we went along, and people used to say to me all the time, "Well, it must be fun to write a newspaper column." And I said, "Yeah, it's an 800 word term paper every Thursday." So,
yep, I know, right? Oh my gosh, nothing like deadlines when you're,
That was a hard thing to get into the grind with. Okay, and there were many a Wednesday that I would be sitting there over breakfast with Linda and saying, I don't know what I'm going to deliver tonight, And she would say, well, you haven't looked at this and you haven't talked about that. And maybe you should go back and re-examine that other thing again, And usually one of those things would spark an idea, and I'd spend the rest of the day researching it and writing my column. Okay. Well, couple of years into it, 2013, I started, for something to do, I started adding up. I got access to the MUFON database. And, of course, anybody can get access to the National UFO Reporting Center database since it's online. And the previous director of MUFON was kind enough to give me a guest account where I could go in and I could research articles. They wouldn't give me an account deep enough like an investigator where I could go really deep and really get a lot of personal data. But there was a concern of confidentiality for the people
who... Well, there is. They protect those experiencers with kid gloves as well. They should, because,
yes,
people have lost their profession because of having a UFO experience, and their experiencer group is very confidential and very well supported. So I understand that. I know
that made complete sense to me as well. And that was an arrangement I had with my editor-in-chief, Larry. I told Larry, I says, we have the problem in newspaper of who, what, when, where, why. Okay. I can't tell you who because the databases are blocked to me. And besides, we would be outing somebody in a stigma-ridden culture. Okay. I can't tell you why. And if I could, I would be getting a Pulitzer and a Nobel Prize.
They wouldn't be doing this, but probably might.
Yeah. So, but I could tell you what, when, and where. So if you read one of my stories that said Bob and Susie were laying on the hood of a 64 Pontiac, it wasn't a 64 Pontiac and it wasn't Bob and Susie.
Right.
But I wasn't a pure journalist either. I have a degree in entertainment writing, which is a tad different. And so the idea was I would write a newspaper story, but it wouldn't be exact to the same exact rules of a traditional journalist. So that's how we got going with this thing. And
so let me interject here.
Go ahead, please.
Pardon me. Easy for me to say, right?
Yes, and it's your show, so interrupt anytime you like.
Well, out of curiosity, a lot of times, going back to the style of writing, a lot of times people get or have been turned off because they feel like things are fictionalized, that things are, this couldn't possibly be true. You would have the gist of your stories correct, right?
Always.
Because
the actual event was described almost exactly the way it was reported in the post on the database. Okay, but right. I had to build sometimes the environment around it. Okay, and if I knew where it was, I would say where it was. But I didn't know whose car it was. I didn't know who the person was.
So you were just kind of giving a background so people would relate to where you were going so that they would understand perhaps the mindset or things of that nature. They could put themselves in that place.
Exactly. The trick was to try and get people to identify with the person having the sighting. Because people who see UFOs, people assume they're something else. They're somebody other, and most people can't relate to them. But if I say Bob and his son were out fishing one night, and this big bright thing came over them, and the fish stopped biting, and the crickets and frogs stopped making noise, people could identify with that, especially people who are outdoorsmen. That type of thing. So I tried to always give it a hook that people would identify with, but the facts of the sighting were exactly the way it was presented to me in the
right.
report. So we did this stuff. When I started doing another thing is I started going in the database and I started adding up numbers. And since New York State was a New York State newspaper, New York State was my beat. So I started looking up numbers in other cities and counties. Would you believe that the Mutual UFO Network, their entry on county data, which they do have a column for that as you're making your report, but it's dependent upon the person who's making the report. So 3% didn't even know what town they were in or didn't spell it right. And so things like that got to the point where the county data was usually wrong. Okay. I mean, and
I can understand that.
Almost always wrong. So we had to add that information. But as we did, we started seeing some really weird patterns. in this data when I'd put it out on a graph or something. So I took it into my editor one afternoon and we laid it out on a couple of big church project table type things, right? And we were looking at them, and he said, I want to know if these things are happening around fault lines, gas wells, oil wells, pollution, military bases, mental hospital. I want to know what they're near. Okay. I said, okay. So as we went, we started showing the data to some retired New York State MUFON directors, old guys. Okay. Right. And some of their retired state investigators. Okay. And they started remarking about the data we had. They said, Cheryl, Linda, we didn't know there was a cluster there. We didn't know there was a cluster there either. We thought the hot spot in New York State was the Hudson Valley. Now you're showing us it's Suffolk County, Long Island. It was all this stuff. All our data was blowing their assumptions out of the water.
Well, there you go.
So that's how we got doing the data. So this is around 2015. So October 2015, Linda and I are sitting in our favorite pub. We've got a couple of pints, and we're sitting there waiting for our burgers. And she said, look at all the cool stuff we found. So what would happen if we did the whole country? And I just gave her that kind of stares, you've got to be kidding kind of thing, And
I know that stare.
You know that stare. And we sat there and just looked at each other. Now, here's the point I got to point out. For the last 7 years, with all the books that have come out and everything, I have been the physical, visible face of the data. I've got the arts and entertainment degree. I'm not afraid to be in front of 5,000 people on stage. Okay. Linda was a little bit more shy about it, but the truth be told, she is the scientific brain. She's got the real science degree. She worked at the National Academy of Science. We both had 30-year careers in DC for the listeners, and she worked at the National Academy of Science. She was the head scientific librarian for the Environmental Protection Agency's toxicology library for 15 years. Brilliant lady. Really scientifically trained, had done studies like this, but for a different thing, which I'll tell you in a minute. And me, I had military and corporate analysis skills. I can tell you, I gathered intelligence in the Navy. I can't tell you where, I can't tell you how, but I can tell you I gathered intelligence in the Navy. Okay. And so with my analysis skills on her, we were the perfect team. She guided the scientific research part of what we did, and I had the analysis and skills to go in there and make some sense of the data. So we said, okay, let's try this. We figured it'd take us a year. It took us 18 months. We didn't know what we were doing. Things we did back in 2016 to build that first book that took us like 3 months to do, I can do in a month now. Things that took us a month to do back then, I can do in a morning now. Because as federal contractors, the first thing you have to remember about federal contracting, how do I want to say this? Okay, as a contractor, the rule was learn to do as little work as possible. Now, that sounds like we're all lazy, okay? No, the first time you do a tough job for the government and you know it's going to be a repeating thing, you write a process procedure and you try each time you have to do that job, you repeat it. So if a job took 2 hours the first time you did it, and the next time around, you could do it a little faster. So we got to the point where we could do this stuff faster. Of course, we still build the government for 2 hours, but
well, it's still reaping the benefit of your practices with the first one.
Exactly.
You had to set up that policy and procedures.
Yes, exactly. So
and it's the government.
And it's the government, as they say, good enough for government work. So we got this stuff done, and it took us 18 months. But I should say it this way: it took 18 months worth of weekends. Okay, and about 2,000 hours altogether. And we got it all done, and we put the book out. And the thing that really made it go through the roof was the New York Times. Ralph Blumenthal at the New York Times. And of course, Ralph just had another really great article here about a week ago. But Ralph took 2 copies of it, took it into his editors, threw it on the desk, and said, "I know why we don't report UFOs." It's all anecdotal stories. Some old ladies in Syracuse did the science. He told me that verbatim.
But you know what? Go Ralph, because I mean,
Six months later, they broke the ATIP story, and look what they did here a week ago. With Dave Gresh. So that was the beginning of it, and suddenly the newspaper I was working for, the morning that article, and if your listeners want to look that article up, Google NYT for New York Times, NYT Costa UFO. Three separate words, and you'll find an April 24th, April 25th article called "People Are Seeing UFOs Everywhere," and this book proves it. Okay, and perfect. And it was the perfect title. And my phone started ringing that morning at 8:30, and did not. The first call was from the Times of London, and then it was a French paper in Paris. And it just went on and went on and on till about 10:30 that night. And what I didn't know was the same thing was happening down at the newspaper. News directors and news editors all over the world were calling our little dinky weekly paper. So that's how we got started with UFO statistics. And what we planned to do coming out of that first book was we decided we would do a 20-year sample altogether. And the 20-year sample the idea was, we're going to do the Charles Fort thing. We're going to do the first data analysis and statistical analysis of UFOs in the first 20 years of the 21st century. Okay? The idea being we might learn some stuff now, but years from now, somebody's going to want to look back and say, wow, there were the pioneers right there. That was our mindset. And
well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. That's it.
I want to get back to the phone calls because, and I know my interest level. Okay. If I had somebody sending me information saying these people have this is, anytime in my job, anytime I find someone who has information that is new to me, that may not be new, but if it's new to me, it's going to be new to a lot of my listeners too. So I do go and seek those people. If I had gotten that memo, that information, I would have been probably sitting there, waiting for you to come to work to sit down and talk and go over things. That's how I felt when we saw each other that morning. And we're going to get to that. But, the fact that people reaching out to you, that does not surprise me at all. What surprises me are the people who didn't. How do you not do that?
Agreed. It was funny because Ralph actually did come and visit us. At the time, Linda and I had a 100-year-old 3-story house at the time. And he came up on the train. I picked him up, took him to one of these extended stay hotel type things, got him booked in, and then we went to the house, and the two of us sat there and drank tea and ate scones half the afternoon talking about UFOs. And then Linda came home from work and sat down, and he and her bantered for another 3 hours, and then we all packed up in the car and went out to one of the local Irish pubs, and we all got mildly buzzed, as they say.
The best way to discuss that, right?
Yeah, we had a wonderful conversation. But he honestly told me part of the reason he actually came up was he wanted to make sure we weren't living in my mother's cellar.
With somebody tied up in there too, right?
Well, but the whole bottom line,
he just wanted to make sure that you were A, sane, and B, not dangerous. And for everyone listening, thank you so very much, because you know what? You're listening to The X. We are Paranormal Talk Radio, and thank you so much. We will see you on the flip side.
Hey there, X-Streamers. Ray Sobbs here to tell you how you could tune in to your favorite paranormal programming without using all of your mobile data in the process. When you're on the road and you want to log into the X, save your mobile data and never miss a minute of the On-X network programming by calling the X line at 667-930-9331. No smartphone app or internet needed. Save it to your contacts and dial hands-free. And there's no extra cost to you if you have unlimited minutes. So you can listen to the X at any time on any phone, anywhere. Check it out at 667-930-9331. That's 667-930-9331. It's brought to you by your friends at the Paranormal.radio and the UnXNetwork.com.
I am Conor McGregor, multiple weight MMA champion. I'm a fighter and I've been through many battles in the octagon. Many consider my fights in the octagon heroic, but the real life heroes are those men and women who fight to protect us every day. The real life fighters, the real life heroes are the firefighters and police officers. These first responders are true heroes because these brave men and women put themselves in the line of danger every single day protecting us all. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation ensures that first responders from fire, EMS and police departments who are killed in the line of duty with young children have a home without the burden of a mortgage. They are my heroes. They need our help today. I'd like to ask you to join me in donating $11 a month to support their efforts. Your $11 a month honours and supports our first responders. Please call now at 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com.
Hey folks, this is Derek Hayes, host of Monsters Among Us podcast, and I'm here to invite you to check out the program every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern, right here on the X. Each week, Monsters Among Us highlights real accounts of ghosts, aerial anomalies, strange occurrences, and cryptic creatures, straight from the mouths of the witnesses themselves. So grab a snack or a beverage, switch off the lights and lock the doors, then tune in for some paranormal terror. Catch Monsters Among Us every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern with me, Derek Hayes, right here on the UnXNetwork.com.
Explaining the unexplained. The new UnXNetwork.com.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I am Kat Hobson, your host. I'm so glad you're back because this is such a fantastic show, especially given recent happenings. Because my guest, Cheryl Costa, is one of the best UFO researchers with her wife, Linda, who, their information is spot on. And Cheryl, when we were talking last Monday morning, as this news was coming out, it was just kind of like, I can't believe that this came out the day the Contact in the Desert was closing. One of the biggest UFO conferences in the world. So little did they know that some people had time to change their presentation for that morning too. But getting back to you, we were talking about your work going global and people realizing that there was someone out there with an actual hunger for information on UFOs. There were so many things that happened. What would you say made this the most difficult for you? And perhaps you could also do a little bit of discussion about what was the best thing to come out of this, other than obviously your books and the recognition, but your first conference, things of that nature. I mean, how did you get picked up other than by people just calling based on hearsay? This was huge. I mean, you actually kind of became, not really overnight because there's a lot of work that went into it, but you became rock stars.
Yeah, that was the goofy thing about it. Well, the first thing that happened was after when the New York Times article came out, suddenly the book had huge visibility. And there was a particular large group of people that began trashing me on the couple of podcasts that I was doing. I did it from the time the book came out till through 2018, we'll say. Okay, the book came out in 2017.
Right.
Part of it was where'd these women come from? Did they fall out of the freaking sky? We've never heard of these people, and
I can see that. There are a
couple of old broads. What do they know about UFOs? Hey, they're not field investigators. What can they possibly know? Okay. Yeah. And the way we
maybe a little prejudice there.
Yeah. And the problem we ran up against is many people looked at it and said, asked that question later as that kind of feedback started coming. And we said, there is more than one way to investigate a topic matter rather than case studies. Case studies amount to essentially an autopsy. Okay. Yeah. Linda came from the scientific world. She came and like at the National Academy of Science, was working with the Environmental Protection Agency to come up with ways to try and find super polluted areas. And what they started using was a thing called a disease model. I'll give you an example. There was look for childhood leukemia, and it's always caused by some kind of polluting chemical poisons. Okay. And they started finding wherever those clusters were, they found these super sites where where some chemical company buried everything. They plowed dirt over top, built a housing complex on it, and the kids played in the backyard. And guess what? They got contaminated. They got sick, and they either got sick with leukemia or got sick with leukemia and died. Okay.
Yep. So we lived in a town that was one of those super sites.
So you get what I'm saying. That. So we decided to look at UFOs on a bigger scale. Measure the phenomena has been our stock and trade. We wanted to find out how many per year, how many per month, what time of day are they, where are they. Okay, and through the course of that, we came up with 5 drivers and 5 influencers. Drivers, every place is influenced by the 5 driver issues. And then the influencers happen in certain states because of certain physical conditions there in the state. Okay. But prior to us saying this stuff, and there was a lot of resistance to this, was everybody said, oh, Cheryl, it's all driven by population. If you plot the dots, they're all around the major cities. It's just more eyes in the sky, and they're always around the major cities. And we found out that isn't necessarily true.
Agreed.
Okay? And we also found out that temperate weather drove it. We found out that leisure time drives it in spades. Hours of darkness makes a big difference. Okay. We found out, and also if you see something, you got to have the ability to report it. Observer access to broadband was a driver. Okay. But the bottom line was we figured this stuff out, and I guess everybody was trashing us. What do they know? What do they know? And then one of the funny things that came out of it was I get on some of the podcasts, there was a little talk stream going up the side, and people would look at me, and I'm androgynous.
Right.
And I have a deep voice. Okay, audience, yes, okay, fine. I'm a transsexual person. But people were making all these comments up the side. That person doesn't know what gender they are. And oh my God, how can we believe that person's statistics? They're so confused, And this is how I got treated through 2018. So
in 2018?
Yes, 2018, because remember we published the book in 2017. Okay.
Right, but it just doesn't seem possible that was...
You would think
that ignorance was there, right?
So what?
And I'm going to tell you that I have never known you to have any doubt about what gender you are.
The thing I say to people, I know exactly what gender I am. You don't know what I am. So the bottom line is this: as I was getting ready to go into the 2019 talk circuit, I was booked someplace about every 2 weeks for the entire year.
Right.
Linda, we were at Christmas time in 2018. Linda and I were had built the presentation, and I said, I'm going to have to address the monkey in the room since I'm out there by myself. So I added 5 more slides. I showed a slide of what I looked like in combat gear in Vietnam, what I looked like in the Navy with a big Paul Bunyan beard, my submarine officer's uniform or petty officer's uniform on. And then the third slide that came up with that was my glamour shot. Okay. A Vogue style glamour shot. Miss Beautiful. Okay, fine.
It is beautiful. It outdoes mine. Same era. Okay. Same era. My husband saw mine and didn't know who it was. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He was in trouble.
It was funny. It was actually taken because I was part of a talk radio team in Washington, D.C. And the station sent us out for glamour shots for our publicity pictures. It was an all-female team, and that was mine. So the bottom line was I did that, and I showed a picture of me and Linda jumping over the broom at our wedding, okay? And the point that I had to make to people was, look, people keep thinking we're sisters or cousins because we got the same last name. We're a married couple, folks. It's the 21st century, So I said this stuff on stage, the first 4 slides I put up after the title slide, and I would step down front to the edge of the stage with the microphone and say, if you can't deal with us, you'll never deal with E.T., and I didn't know if I was going to get stoned with ashtrays or something, Ultimately, in most every place I went, I got a standing ovation. I was really quite taken back by that.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah, it is.
To be honest.
It was very encouraging.
Gives me a little more faith in humanity.
And since that time, I haven't had that trouble. Okay. We're long past that. People realize that, as my newspaper made a point about saying, you've established such gravitas with your column and with the material you've produced and published that it's not an issue anymore. That whole issue never comes up in the soundtracks or the text tracks in the chats and things like that. It doesn't come up anymore. In fact, I usually just say, "Wow, I'm excited to see her. She's cool." So
exactly. That's what I get when I have you on.
So that's where that went. But when we did this thing with doing the first talk series, I had never done anything like that. Going someplace every 2 weeks to talk someplace. I put this one set of clothes together. This is a girl problem, I put a package of clothes together, and I came back. Those clothes worked really well, so I washed them, folded them back up, put them back in the suitcase. I wore the same set of clothes the entire year at these talks. If it
that
works,
would be
use
the other
it,
side. That would be the other side of the coin. Okay. I love it.
But something that kept coming up. Okay, we get into 2019. Linda, we're screaming towards the idea that Linda and I are going to produce a 2001 to 2020 book in 2021 as soon as we have the data. Okay, nobody knew COVID was coming. Okay, I get a phone call from the usual suspects in D.C. We'll call them. They are our UFO lobbyists in D.C. We got a bunch of good ones down there.
Yes, we do.
And they said, look, Senator Rubio is going to try and attach a bill to some continuing spending package. And Linda and I both had 30-year careers in D.C. We knew what that meant. So we said, okay, so what's the deal? He says, well, you women are the only people who have ever produced statistical data on the phenomena. This is huge. Project Blue Book didn't even do this stuff. So would you be willing to testify before Congress if asked? And she said, yeah, of course. But, please understand something. We used to be federal contractors. You try to work your whole career so you never have to testify before Congress.
True.
So that was the deal.
It's not usually a good thing.
No, it's never a good thing. So the bottom line was we went ahead and we're working on our stuff. Then COVID hit and everything went in the toilet. But they told us that that bill was still going to get attached to something. Who knew it would be the COVID relief package that he would attach it to, that type of thing. But during 2020, when we were home with nothing to do, all dressed up and no place to go, a number of fans had written to me and said, when are you going to put a book out that goes down to the local village level? Okay. And I took that seriously. I had a lot of mail to that regard. So I went ahead and sat down one afternoon in April of that lockdown, and I ran a report that would show me how many pages it would be, okay, if I did the entire United States, because the reference books had every state, and it had it down to the county level in every state with a kind of a summary of the top cities, top counties, that type of thing. And when I did it, the system told me it would have been upwards of 6,500 to 7,000 pages. That's 3 Oxford dictionaries. That's 1.5 feet thick.
Yep.
And nobody will publish a thing like that. So I proposed a ludicrous idea, and Linda thought it was totally off the deep end. Of course, when she married me, she knew I was off the deep end. Basically, I said, why don't I publish 50 individual state books?
Yep.
And she is my publisher. And she says, you're nuts. But
I can see that, and I can actually hear that. So funny.
She's very pragmatic about these things. But then I put together I was an engineer, and I did a thing called methods engineering, how to manufacture something. Okay. So I was very good in that class, got an A in that class. And basically I said, how can I make 50 books when I have to sit down and write 50 individual books that are different? I said, well, we had all these scientific papers we wrote for the pink book, by the way, when we were getting ready to release the 2001 to 2020 book, we had decided that if we ended up going to be testifying before Congress, we wanted those congressmen, imagine you're on C-SPAN, you're sitting there and they're thumbing through books up there asking you questions. We wanted the audience at home to know that book was published by a couple of women. Mm-hmm. So we decided to make the front cover of the thing bright fuchsia pink. You can flag an aircraft with this thing. Okay.
Yes, you can. It is brilliant.
And it's a thick book. The book is credited with at least one concussion. Some wife hit her husband over the head with it, gave him a concussion. But the deal is we wanted that book to be bright. We dedicated it to Cora Lorenz, the woman who started the APRO in 1952, collecting data, much as MUFON and NUFORC do now. She was the first person in the United States to do this. And, of course, when they reported the story about it back in the 50s, they always said it was her husband, but it was truly her that did it. Because how could a housewife know how to do that, that back in those days? So we
how could two women do all this stuff?
Oh, of course. It was that whole Linda. Okay, let's look at it this way. Linda has turned me into a very rabid feminist. Okay. So
but I mean, it's odd that, it hasn't changed. The mindset had not changed when y'all approached people with that. It's really very frustrating as a woman.
Yeah,
but it's changed.
It is. It really is. And so the bottom line in the whole thing was we said that was what we were going to do. So we got done 2020, and we took the data, and we got it all crunched. The stuff that took us 2,000 hours to do with the white book, I did in 800 hours.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I pretty much put the book together by myself, the pink book together by myself. Linda edited it, but beyond that, I pretty much built the thing myself. And this one went down again to the county level, the state and county level, but it was updated data for a 20-year measurement. And we got that out. And there was a lot of interest in that. Couldn't get the New York Times to look at it again. There'd been a change in the editorial management, that type of thing. And we can see that today, that change in editorial management, not really interested in giving the UFO topic matter a fair shake. Okay. So I went ahead and started working on the 50 individual state books. It took me probably about almost 2 years to do. I built all the tables. I built all the research. We had all the scientific articles, and we basically built them in PDF form. So all we had to do was stack it up like blocks to make a book. And Linda and I published all 50 of them between Halloween last year. Hey, I'm a wicked priestess. Got to do it on a magic holiday. So we started on Halloween with Ohio. UFOs in Ohio and where to find them. And a week later, we published UFOs in Michigan and where to find them. And then the week after that, we published 5 in a week. And we did 5 in a week through the rest of October and through November. Got into the first week of December, and I told Linda, I can give you 10. Gave her 10. She had a registration process. And we were tightening up our process of publishing these things on Amazon every day. Every week. So by the time we got to December, she had it down. She gave me the ISBN numbers, registered them, gave me the ISBN numbers. I put them in. I gave her the PDF. She uploaded them and did the covers. And boom, we had the last 20 out in 2 weeks. So we had the entire 50 books done between Halloween and the 27th of December.
Absolutely astounding.
And so we're rather proud of the collection. And it does go down to, and what we did when I was working on the book in 2020, I put 800 hours in to correct the spelling of cities because people don't spell their cities right. And we decided to add, while we were fixing the database in that regard, we added zip code data to every burg. So we can now do research at the zip code level. And the zip code data told us things about UFO patterns that nobody ever imagined.
What was the thing that blew your mind the most?
People ask me, what's the hottest zip code in the United States for UFO sightings? And it's, get your pencils out, kids. It's 85001. 85001. Downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And, of course, Maricopa County, where Phoenix is the number 2 county in the country for sightings. They have more sightings than 36 individual states. Los Angeles has more than 39 individual states. But the hottest zip code in the country for UFO sightings is 85001. And, in fact,
that's downtown.
That's downtown. And people
that's
say,
a whited area. That's a metropolitan area. It's a big metropolitan area.
But remember, it's a big metropolitan area. As soon as you get away from the actual downtown, that light pollution falls off tremendously. And it's also desert sky, too. So,
True.
But the deal is, we in our presentations right now, like we did at the conference, at the end, after we gave you the summary of all the big national numbers and things, and the top states, the top counties, the top cities, the top zip codes, all that. We at the end we do the last about 130 slides. We flash through them quickly. We show you each state and its distribution of UFOs by zip code, and only the zip codes that had UFOs are lit up. There are 41,695 zip codes in the United States, 18,605 reported UFOs. There are, let's talk about counties now. Again, people seem to, I don't know why people think this. They think they're rare or something like that. There are 3,135 counties in the United States. 3,030 counties reported UFOs 2001 to 2020. 105 counties did not report them in 20 years. They turned out to be rural, poor, agricultural, and lacking in rural broadband.
Interesting.
You got to, if you see it, you got to be able to report it. And if you don't have an easy way to report it, like jumping on the internet, you can't report it.
That's true.
So that's some of the big stuff we've discovered.
So for the reporting, did you only utilize the MUFON reporting program?
No. I had a dump of their database. Okay. And the first thing we got rid of is people think my database has the stories and everything like that. We got rid of all that information. We don't need it. We only need what, when, where, and
Right.
how long, that kind of stuff, and what the date was. We added zip code data, corrected the spelling on cities. See, sometimes 3.5% of the data, which amounted to about 12,000 records, they didn't even enter a city.
Yes.
Okay, or they entered their city, but they would say, we'll say Jasper next to Joe's Pizza, or Jasper next to Bob's gas station. And you can't sort on a thing like that. It comes up in a report as two different Jaspers because it's a different record. So we had to correct all that. And plus we had a better program for putting in the county data than we did back in 2016. So we really was able to tighten that up tremendously. And the data is very accurate. Plus we added latitude and longitude, but that doesn't help as much as the zip code did. Or we've actually, people are always asking me, where are the hot spots, Cheryl? Okay. And I said, it's relative. Do you want to know by state, the top 10 states? Do you want to know the top 10 counties in the country? Do you want to know the top 10 zip codes? What do you want to know? And TV producers come to us all the time and say, we want to go to that place where it's like a regularly scheduled thing. You know, it's almost like a bus schedule. They show up there every day. We want to set up our cameras and wait for them. Even in downtown Phoenix, while they happen to be almost 500 more sightings over 20 years than the next closest zip code for sightings, it still amounts to only 5 or 6 a month. You're going to be burning up your producer's credit card right badly, sitting on a penthouse waiting for these things, you know. So it's not as simple as you think. But we did identify that there are 728 one-day hot spots that occurred once, someplace where nothing ever goes on. Suddenly they had 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 UFO sightings in one day. Okay, and there's 2 different types of clusters that produce this. I'm going to write a separate book on just hotspots.
Well, I wish that you would. And also, we're going to talk about this when we come back from the break, but
please.
There are, I know of at least one place that has consistent appearances. Mm-hmm. And I would venture to say that one is not the only, because I mentioned that when I was at the SCU conference, the Scientific Coalition on UAPs last year, and that is held by that organization in Huntsville. This year is going to be virtual, and I'm just going to say that is a fantastic scientific UFO conference, so check it out. But I had mentioned this to one of their members who came up with a great idea on how to document that, and we'll address that when we come back from break. But I have so many notes written down through here. And I know that we're going to discuss contact, but
okay, let's go to contact when you come back. But when we come back, ask me about a tiny percent, how many they are if we're only doing 30% or 5% or 1%.
Okay, I'm writing that down so I don't forget that. So for everyone listening, we are going to be back. We are so appreciative that you are there listening to the UNX, and I am definitely thrilled to be here with my guest, Cheryl Costa. So y'all come back. See you on the flip side, and thanks again.
Race Hobbs here for the Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifier. Eliminate odors caused by mold and mildew, bacteria, and viruses in your home with the Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifier. The Thunderstorm doesn't mask or cover up bad smells. It eliminates them. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm uses oxy technology that naturally sends out O3 molecules that seek out and destroy odors. The Thunderstorm is small and it fits in the palm of your hand, so you can put one in your basement, your bedroom, your home gym, or family room, kitchen, or anywhere you want to keep clean, fresh air. It even includes a USB cord for your car, truck, or motorhome. And right now, save $200 on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for whole home protection. That's 3 units for under $200. So go to EdenPureDeals.com right now. Use discount code X3 to save $200. That's EdenPureDeals.com and use promo code X and the number 3, and shipping is free.
If you're interested in reading the facts about USOs, Unnex Media has the perfect one-of-a-kind book for you. Debbie Ziegelmeyer is the director of the MUFON Underwater Research and Recovery Team, a UFO investigator, and has appeared on TV shows such as the Alaska Triangle. Debbie now shares her knowledge of USOs, underwater submerged objects, in her new book, The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways, a reference guide to water-related UFO sightings. Read about hundreds of USO observations worldwide, including many from our own military and Debbie's many investigations. Get your copy of The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways at Amazon. Visit unxmedia.com for more information. That's www.unxmedia.com.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
You're locked in to the X, KUNX-DB, Kansas City, Missouri.
What's up, Saucerheads? This is Ryan Sprague, host of Somewhere in the Skies, where each week we bring you the latest UFO news, featuring interviews with some of today's leading UFO researchers. We also take a look back at fascinating UFO cases of the past. And we feature a series called Witness Accounts, where you tell your UFO stories. Every week is truly something different, so be sure to check us out every Wednesday at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the UNX Network. And remember, keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching somewhere in the skies.
Join us on unxnetwork.com for real alternative talk and live paranormal programming with multiple shows and top hosts, including Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, Dave Schrader, Race Hobbs, Margie Kay, and that's just naming a few, because the X covers UFOs and UAPs, extraterrestrial encounters, Bigfoot and cryptids, portals and dimensions, consciousness and conspiracies, and many other fascinating subjects. And right now, you can become an X subscriber free. Receive a free digital copy of the quarterly UNX magazine, edited by our managing editor, Lee Spiegel, and get discounts to our annual X conference and more. Join us and get real alternative talk and paranormal programming all in one place on the X. Log on to unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com.
Alternative talk you can trust. The X.
Welcome back to Fate Magazine Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I am Kat Hobson. I'm so glad that you are here. I love what I do because I get to speak with people like tonight's guest. Cheryl Costa is a fantastic researcher. She is the best source for numbers as far as reportings, sightings, and she is made a fantastic reference. And if you want to find out, UFOs in your state and where to find them by state, county, zip code, locality, and shape, that's the go-to person. She and her wife, Linda, have put this together as part of the UFO Scholar State Statistics Series, and you can find it on Amazon. So let's go and get some more information about this. And Cheryl, I'm so thrilled you're here. I always am. I love speaking with you.
Thank you.
Well, I was actually making notes during our break and beyond where we were making notes together. But, I think that breaking this down to the zip code level for people who may have missed the previous hour is brilliant. And I'm so glad that you did it. And if you did miss that first hour, I'm telling you, check her out on Amazon. This information will change your viewpoint, change your life, and maybe rock your world. So, Cheryl, we were talking about the Ralph Blumenthal, Leslie Kean article that came out, too.
Okay.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And when we found out, we were both still at Contact in the Desert, which is a UFO conference and consciousness conference in California. It was normally it closes on Sunday. People had stayed over till Monday for some additional workshops. And I had seen the headline as I was packing, getting ready to go. I was leaving earlier than you and ran into you in the lobby. And you said, in the course of our conversation, oh, well, I guess you've heard the news today. And I was like, I saw something in a blurb, but I didn't get a chance to read it yet. And you told me. And I was so blown away by the information shared that I immediately said, come and talk to me when we get home. Okay, and here we are.
Here we are.
because you are the person that I like to talk to, who is the voice of reason, often who is always open, though. And you are very analytical. So there was a lot of information shared. What did you take from that, and how surprised were you to see it?
Well, okay. Remember 2 nights before we had most of the conference. It was 2,000 or 3,000 people in that conference room. Mm-hmm. And we had an all-star panel of people.
I'd say.
We had Richard Dolans. We had everybody. You name somebody you've seen on Ancient Aliens, and they were probably there too. And I was very surprised that Steve Bassett had me up there. Okay, but I quickly figured out where I was going to fit into this thing, and so disclosure's coming, folks. It really is. The infrastructure for has been revealed. It's being taken apart. Congress is asking hard questions, and it's coming. But on the morning we were getting ready to come home, people were spilling their coffee in the lobby as they were looking at their phones and reading their news feeds. Suddenly, here's a story from Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal revealing that we have a high government official who had the clearances and the visibility. He's a straight up guy. I mean, the people in the intelligence community all know him. He's a true patriot, sharp guy, and he had visibility to look down into all these compartmented intelligence information, compartmented areas, and know what they're doing. And to hear him talk, he says, "Yeah, we really do have." Dead aliens. We really do have crashed vehicles from, quote, non-human intelligences, plural. We actually have a couple of them that are completely intact craft. And when they started burying the stuff, it was during the Cold War. Now, I'm a Cold War Navy sailor, okay? And I did intelligence work. So I understand having to keep things close to your chest. So the government during the Cold War didn't want to let the opposition know that we had possibly advanced technology from not of this world, and that we wanted to exploit it for everything it was worth. Unfortunately, the the system of doing all that stuff got a little crazy, and they did things they probably shouldn't have done. And Mr. David Gresh testified before the Inspector General. And part of the reason he's been able to come forward is because the Inspector General said some of the stuff you've informed me of is criminal. And really? we had heard during our disclosure panel, several people say they had been told that if we really did disclosure properly, not just about UFOs, but how it was handled with our people, with our government, and the quote civilian contractors who work for those agencies, that it would be catastrophic. Well, we were trying to figure out, why would it be catastrophic? It's going to be messier than Watergate was. Okay? Watergate.
Different foundation, though.
Different foundation, different topic matter, but it's going to be messier than that. And if it all comes out, not only will we find out about the not of this world, not non-human intelligences, but a lot of heads are going to roll. Okay.
At this point, is that, let me think how best to phrase this.
Well, think about it this way.
To quote Hillary, at this point, what does that matter?
Well, it does. It does, because remember, over the years, there was a lot of stories. Who's killing all the UFO investigators a few years ago? Okay, remember all that? Okay,
I do.
And a lot of people had their careers ruined because they just reported a UFO. Okay,
look at
airline
Graham
pilots. Say that again.
Graham Parker.
Yeah, there you go.
As far back as that. Okay, I'm with you. I'm on the page.
So here's all this stuff, and it reads, when you think about it in the back of your mind. Here's the writer. I'm an entertainment writer. It reads like a late night ambulance chaser type a commercial. If you lost a job because you reported a UFO, if your children were abducted, if you were abducted, if you lost your business because you reported a UFO, or lost your career or license or whatever, contact our law firm because we have new treaties with the off-worlders, that kind of thing. And I know it sounds silly, but it's pretty close to the truth. A lot of people
are ambulance
have been damaged by
this, but I still think, I don't know. I'm going to let you finish. I'm sorry.
Well, the bottom line with the thing is, the guy is highly placed. He had a clearance high enough to do briefings in the West Wing of the White House. Mm-hmm. Okay, he still does, and he's calling them on some of the things that has been going on that he has an understanding of. Okay, now. Here's the cynical press the last few years, okay? The people who trash guys like Bob Lazar and things like this, or anybody else. I've had my share.
The whole cottage industry.
Yeah, I've had that whole trashing thing myself. Okay, they got no proof. Fantastic things require fantastic evidence. But if the evidence, if somebody keeps cleaning up the evidence so we can't show it to anybody, how can we really know the truth? And that's the insidious part about this. This is, as a journalist, this is the greatest story never told. And this is wrong. And my hat is off to the organization News Nation, okay, for carrying this. But even a couple of their commentators are saying, hey, where's the evidence? Show us the smoking gun. Show us, what does the media want? What do people want? This is me, the journalist, talking. They want
an alien,
a dead, bleeding alien on the pavement, and they want the cracked up starship in the mall parking lot. That's what they want.
They're not going to believe a real alien. Because it would be CGI. So,
it's exactly.
For those people, there's not ever going to be enough evidence. And, let's go back to, this guy was of a level to be taking meetings in the White House, in the Oval Office. At what point in his career, at what administration would he first have had access of that level?
That I don't know. I don't have the inside track on him. I certainly didn't interview him, but the guy who did, Ross Coulthart from he works
7-hour interview, right?
He works, 7-hour interview, and he works very closely with Mr. Zabel. Okay, and I watched a 60-minute conversation between the two of them talking about his 7-hour interview with this guy, and they did it in like a private warehouse kind of space. It was tight security to protect this guy. Okay, and the thing I have to basically explain to your audience, when you're dealing with really deeply classified material, I say it this way. First thing I learned about the intelligence business, it's the second oldest profession, and it's got less morals than the first oldest profession. Once you're in that business of intelligence, your family, your loved ones, all the people you hold dear will never know what you did for your country, good or bad. Okay. And ultimately, and I knew this in no job that I did, if our ship had been captured, there were about 35 of us on the ship. The master at arms had a bullet with our name on it. And basically, we would not be captured. We understood that. We were told this point blank. You will not be captured. Okay. So, that's the business. So you're going to take this information to your grave. And that's the nature of – I hear a lot of younger people saying, well, why can't they just violate their security oath? No, because you can't. If they don't have a bullet with your name on it, they might promise you, we know where your kids are. We know where your grandkids are. We know where your wife is. Okay, that's the threat and pressure they hold over you. And also, if you're in a career that uses that kind of a clearance, it can drastically affect your job, so to speak, and your livelihood. And I worked I worked in a kind of high security, so I get it. I understand. You can't tell. It's just the nature of the beast.
Well, I have a question to put in here. This guy came out of ATIP, or was affiliated with ATIP. Am I correct? Didn't he have a role in that program?
I don't know if he did or not. I've never heard him mentioned. And I interviewed Lou Elizondo 3 times for my paper.
Well, I mean, recently he was outed as being part of that, but so was Travis Taylor.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know the details there either.
Well, he was very forthright about it on his program, which means that he had plenty of permission to say that he was chief science officer for ATIP. But it stands to reason that somebody with this information would have been possibly included in that program. I am not naive about what you're saying about the intelligence role here at all. I totally get it. And I totally understand the need to protect things to that level. I don't know the things that need to be protected to that level, but that is not my job. So, and it's very hard for me to realize and recognize somebody who goes into something knowing that it is a life and death thing. People in this generation don't appear to understand that. As you said, why don't you just violate that oath? But I do know that people take that incredibly seriously. And when I have asked people who were ostensibly retired military questions, I had, just about disinformation. I had someone bow up very heavily at me and just bark out at me, I would never violate my oath, which was my answer. But, people need to realize just exactly what you said is true. People will die if they do that. People close to them will die. But why would this be shrouded in such secrecy? Because we have to know that if we're getting down to craft, other people, other nations are too. So why was this clouded in such secrecy?
Well, okay. Let's go back originally. Let's go back to like 1947 when they originally the Army base down in Roswell initially reported we got one. We got a flying disc. Okay, and then suddenly they backpedaled. They were ordered to backpedal by Washington for two reasons. One, it's going to give us an edge over the Soviets in 47. The Cold War was just heating up. Okay, post-war. Okay, plus only 8 years before, Orson Welles scared the snot out of the country.
True. I've always said that was a test run and we failed.
Yeah, exactly. So he did a form of disclosure, and they needed time to educate the American people. Well, in the 40s and 50s, if it came from outer space, it was a slimy, bug-eyed monster in the movies at the drive-in. Okay, nowadays, alien fictional characters are among our most beloved characters in our fiction. This is how far we've come. It's Mr. Spock. It's Doctor Who. It's Chewbacca. It's Luke Skywalker. It's Yoda. Okay, those are our heroes now in our fiction. So most people are okay with the idea of off-worlders. I did a couple of polls in the course of the 7 years I wrote my newspaper column, and there was a concern by a small percentage of people, about the same as that 15 or 17% that say there's no such thing, that percentage came back and said, are they here to eat us?
Yeah.
That's their view. They think we're farm animals. Okay. We got too many toxins in our systems now anyway, so we'd be terrible meat. But the bottom line is we're full of preservatives. So that's the problem. But the thing is, it was always about the money. Always follow the money. I lived in DC for 30 years. Okay. It's always about the money. If the technology gives you an edge over something, okay, then maybe I truly believe our first effort they were trying in the 30s and 40s to develop a thing called a transistor. Okay. Yeah. But the idea of doing it with chips, developing chips, was a completely that seemed to be suggested from someplace else. It's what it seems like. Okay. So, who knows how many things we use in our day-to-day life right now that came out of alien technology that was filtered down into industry. Okay. We don't know. I would say
most of our nuclear physics, nuclear programs. I mean, there's so much that, there's no way to know.
There isn't a way to know. It really isn't. I give a presentation sometimes. Linda and I when we were getting ready to do this year's tour, we had never worked together before on stage. Okay. So we built a presentation that was a prototype for the one we would use for the tour. We knew we were going to be at a lot of things this year. So we went to the Cuyahoga Library System. That's the county that Cleveland, Ohio is in. And we went to them and pitched the idea of doing a series of presentations, and they signed us up for 7 of their libraries. So over the winter, December, January, February, Linda and I got to do these tag team presentations with essentially the presentation that we're using on the circuit right now. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it gave us a chance to work together and develop our pattern, our shtick and everything that goes with it, And so this stuff has to be done this way. And there would always be some science teacher or college science teacher or somebody who would stand up. They can't get here from there. And they would just do nothing but argue with you. Okay.
I've heard that argument and had it.
Okay. Yeah. Constantly, and they would fall on a grenade before they would change their opinion, So there are those people who are not going to believe this no matter what. I don't care if they do bring out the dead burnt alien and the cracked up starship. They're not going to believe it. Okay.
It'll be CGI. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that in their idea it is. And that percentage in the United States, that 15-16% amounts to about 43 million people.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, that's it. That's basically it. I hope this guy is genuine. I think he is. judging from the guys who have been, they interviewed him for 7 hours and some of the things they have shared, and they went out and vetted him. And I guess my question is, we've known for a long time that the CIA told us years ago, oh yeah, we got people on our payroll in every major news organization in the country. And these days, there's only about 5 major companies that own everything. Okay. And notice that these are the people who are not going out there and breaking that story. Okay. And suddenly the New York Times wrote a major story in the Sunday paper today that said, oh yeah, well, Bob Lazar was full of it, and this guy's full of it, this new guy's full of it, and da 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 da. And I'm sitting there saying, how does he know? Where's his investigative reporting?
Exactly.
And that's what bothers me, is that it's getting, the people who should be researching it are not doing their job. Okay, New York Times.
Oh, but they are doing their job. They are doing what they're paid to do.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
They're being paid to poo-poo this, ridicule it, go out and feed the masses that are terrified to believe that this could be true, because we did epically fail the Orson Welles test. That would have terrified any government and prevented any other information from coming out. People were jumping out of flipping windows. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as a species, we failed that experiment.
Yes,
but we have been, as you have indicated, I have been raised, Star Trek. I have been raised on Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and going forward, I have a husband who's addicted. So, the Star Wars movies, I started watching them when they came out, right?
Yeah, same
I would
here.
love to have a Chewbacca, but kind of I do with my lab, but it's, close. So, it's just kind of, these people are absolutely doing their job.
Yeah,
and their job is to make fun of people like you and I, to make people, to make whistleblowers look like idiots, to, discredit anything that comes forward, because
or if they can't make them look like an idiot, either kill them or kill somebody close to them.
Close to them, yes. And it's just crazy.
Even Lou Elizondo once made a comment about this. He came to the conferences. He was wearing a bulletproof vest. Okay.
Yeah.
And he once made a remark, and he ended up making the same remark a few months later, like I think it was on one of the shows he was doing for the History Channel. He says, the only thing that's going to stop me talking about this topic matter is a bullet in the head.
Yeah.
Okay. But he was terrified that somebody was going to do something to his family. And the reason I was able to get that private conversation with him at that time was I sat down with him, gave him an understanding of what kind of compartmented kind of stuff I was working with. And I said, I've been there. I understand. I'm not the counterterrorism type guy you are, but we both walked in the same swamp. So so he understood it. So we could dance around the topic a little matter, but he would be able to give me, I could make all my own assumptions based on the coded conversation we had.
Gotcha.
He never told me anything straight up.
And that is a separate language. But we have to get a break. I can't believe this. I know, right? Yep. We always run out of time. But thank you so much for listening to Fate Magazine Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. And we will be back with our wonderful guest, Cheryl Costa, after this here on the X.
Hobbs, and I'm here to tell you about something I really think you're going to like. The UNX Network is a part of a larger group called UNX Media, and one of the things we offer is the quarterly UNX magazine, which is available both in print and digital formats. This amazing magazine covers all aspects of the unexplained and makes for a great coffee table periodical that is certain to spark enlightening conversations in your living rooms. We invite you to check out the latest digital issue for free. Just go to to unxnetwork.com/membership and fill out your free membership with your name and email and become a new free member. The new summer issue is now available, and the theme is Time Anomalies, which includes a feature article written by our managing editor, Lee Spiegel. Just go to unxnetwork.com/memberships. That's unxnetwork.com/memberships and get your free e-copy of the UNX magazine today.
Medical Mary has the highest quality CBD products to enhance your health and wellness goals. Our cutting-edge formulas are not only made with the best ingredients, but also are curated to target specific needs for the body. Use CBD for energy, weight management, pain and stress relief, beauty, sleep quality, pets, and more. Our motto is people helping people. Start your journey into improved health and happiness with Medical Mary CBD. Available at medwoman.medicalmarypartners.com. That's medwoman.medicalmarypartners.com. Or visit my website, margiek.com, for a link. I use Medical Mary and I love it, and it works. I sleep better and feel better thanks to Medical Mary CBD. Visit margiek.com for more information.
I spent a lot of time in the garage, but even more time in the rain and mud. In 95, I helped tow your moving trailer. And in 09, it was sparks from me, your chains, dragging behind your truck that accidentally started a wildfire.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Do you have an interest in the paranormal? Then you'll love the UNXNetwork.com. The X is your streaming audio and video for everything supernatural, strange, and mysterious, like UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and so much more. From hosts like Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and Christina Gomez. Visit the UNXNetwork.com show page for a complete list of all the paranormal programs you'll find on the X. Be sure to follow us on Twitter for updates at KUNXDB. Follow our Facebook group, UNX Network. Find the podcast on Spotify, iHeart, Audible, and Apple Podcast. It's time. It's new. It's the X.
Welcome back to Fate Magazine Radio. I am Kat Hobson, your host, with my wonderful guest, Cheryl Costa. And Cheryl, we have been having the best discussion. Your UFO sightings books are amazing. Your information is spot on, well researched, and I trust it implicitly. I know an awful lot of other people who do also. Now, we were talking about numbers. And when you were sharing information with me relevant to my state, as far as the number of sightings over those 20 years per year and average. So if you are talking to someone and they say, well, you know, most of those are malarkey or other terminology, you have numbers based on percentages.
Mm-hmm.
And can you, because these numbers shocked me, and I believe that they may just shock our listeners too. Would you share that information, please?
Sure. Okay.
Thanks.
For the 20-year period, 2001 to 2020, there were, between MUFON and NUFORC combined data, MUFON's about 40% of the data, NUFORC is about 60% of the data. Okay, there were 167,632 reported sightings. Okay, 167,632 sightings. That works out to about the exact numbers, like 83 something, but it's about 8,400 per year, about 700 per month, about 161 per day per week, and about 23 a day. And that 23 a day is pretty stable. Now, there are sometimes it's a little less in some years, and it's a little bit more in other years. And you can always tell where there's a one-day flat, because if you do a chart where it's the whole year, for like one whole year, it looks like just a pile of vertical lines for 365 days, but you can quickly pick out the one-day hot spots. Now, I was always asked, I'd go to my office copy place. So it was a national line, and the manager knew me, and he knew what I was working on, and he said, well, Cheryl, you did take out the kooks, nuts, and crackpots, right? Well, that's that mindset. You have to vet this stuff to nauseum. Okay,
right?
Statistically, we can do it differently. Okay, so researchers say 70% of the data is noise. Okay, is junk. So let's throw 70% away and keep 30% of that 167,632. It amounts to 50,000 over 20 years, about 2,500 per year, about 210 a month, and about 4 per week. I want you to make a note of this. When I said that 210 a month, that's 210 potential starships coming to the United States every month for the 240 months of 20 years. Well, then they tell me, oh, Cheryl, they got to be rarer than that. Okay. So for the real skeptics, and these are the ones that I say need to sleep with a nightlight, to be honest with you, because they want that number so tiny, so rare that there's no possibility they can get here from there. Okay, 161%, throw 99% away. 167,632, 1% is for 20 years, 1,676, 84 per year, and 7 per month. If those are the real starships, then we have 7 per month coming to the United States every month for the last 240 months of 20 years. Okay. Now, a slide I put up at the presentation, the last couple of presentations I did in both Oregon and at Contact in the Desert, I gave people say, the Costas, what's your opinion? And I give them the 5% opinion. The 5% opinion works out to 5% of the big number. It works out to that 8,400 per year. It works out to, for 20 years, it works out to about 419 per year, about 35 a month, about 8 per week, and about 1 per day coming to the United States. And they said, oh, well, you must have got that from NASA or the ONDI report. And I said, no, we actually had that number 2 years ago.
Yeah,
we figured it out using scientific methods and using data to crunch and said what's the most likely, and we took it down below 30% and say let's just keep 95% of the throw away 95% of the sightings, and NASA and ONDI came back with 5% are the truly unexplained ones, and so do we, but we had it 2 years ago.
Well, it's just really astounding because I get so frustrated when I hear that can't be possible. They can't get there. They can't get here from there and all the other things. Well, we do not know. Einstein was of the opinion that, you could bend space.
Mm-hmm.
You could, and that was the smartest cat I've heard of.
Einstein-Rosenberg Bridge,
yes.
Well, let's go back a second on that. When Linda and I were doing those tag team presentations, we would get a science teacher or a junior college science teacher in the audience, just absolutely try to eat us up.
Sure.
And I finally got very sick of this, right? And so one of the presentations came up, and I said, historically accurate statement I can make to you, especially when I made the point, maybe the ET knows something we don't know. And they arrogantly said, that's impossible. Physics is physics. Okay. And I said, in the late part of the 19th century, the physicist community thought they had it all figured out. Okay. 1897, suddenly there was this talk of particle physics. 1899, there was this talk of something called quantum physics.
Indeed.
Okay, in the 1920s, after the war, it just roared. All this stuff was the heart of our nuclear power. It's the heart of everything. From you go to the supermarket, the little scanner you use, that is quantum physics. That is the quantum physics, the most reliable. It's hardly understood. It looks like witchcraft, but by golly, it's the most confirmable thing out there, even though it's quirky. Okay? And this is the deal. So my argument back to them is what don't we know how to do now that we might know 50 years from now or 100 years from now or maybe next month? Okay? And that's the point that I'm making. Just because we don't know how to do it doesn't mean they don't know how to do it. Remember, it took Columbus almost 3 months to get here. It took Magellan a year to go around the world. Our space station does it every 45 minutes. Okay, so I have flown in very fast aircraft. We fly over to Europe in 6 to 8 hours, depending upon where you're going. So yes. Come on, don't tell me they can't do it. Just because we don't understand that level of physics yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So that's where that's the most interesting conversation sometimes, because when somebody starts that up, I just kind of lean back and listen, and I'm just like, really? And you know this. Where did you get your degree? I mean, and yet they are so, and I don't mean to be offensive for our listeners. I talk to people all the time, like Cheryl, who have researched this to the nth degree. I talk to physicists who know so much more than I do. And if I'm confused, I'm not bashful. I will ask for an explanation. It's okay to do that. And when you start getting just the tiniest fundamental grasp of these ideas, you realize that nothing's impossible. We just may not have figured it out yet. And, I was told that we have, and this was 3 years ago, actually, this was 2018, that we have worked out how to do the teleporting of single-cell organisms. Mm-hmm. That was in 2018. Who knows what they did while they were trapped in their labs, right? I mean, there's no end to human ingenuity when somebody wants to do something. And our government will throw money at it like there's no tomorrow if it's something they want to achieve. So... okay. I come from the mystical side too, so I talk to that. Yes. 46 years, retired Wicca priestess. I'm an ordained Buddhist yogi, and some of the stuff they teach in deep Buddhist training, particularly the Tibetans, as my Lama put it, he was asking some questions one day, and all the monks were sitting there scratching their heads about what the answer was, and he looked at me and says, my Buddhist name is Tashi. He says, Tashi, what does it mean? What am I talking about? And I says, well, it's sounds like quantum physics. And he looked at us with a big smile, and he said, and we had it 2,600 years ago. So this is goofy stuff. Okay, as a mystical person, anybody who people say, well, it's just a lot of crackpots that practice magic. No, the people I know that practice magic are all high-end scientific and technical people. Okay, most of them. And the deal is that there's something going on out there with the quantum physics where we basically practice something. It's not the devil. We're talking about turning thought into form. And what are the consciousness people in the UFO community talking about? We're talking about consciousness with this UFO phenomena, aren't we? So that's a topic for another show. And
we'll have that.
And we will have that. And so the deal is the Dr. Heisenberg, the German physicist, early part of the 20th century, said the universe is stranger than we think, and it is stranger than we can think. And I have to tell you, it is. So to say something blatantly just because the book says it doesn't, you can't do that. Maybe we can next week. Okay.
Well, exactly. We share that. And I am always astounded by you with your background in this. But it is just something that blows my mind. I have spoken with a Buddhist monk who was not to the level, I think, of who you were speaking with, but that mindset is always there, and that is ancient. And there are things beyond what we as a people in the last 1100 years have brought to the fore. I mean, this is not new science. It may be new to people that think that they are creating reality, a new state of reality or whatever, but it's not. And, I'm fascinated. In fact, Tracy Garbutt did a lecture on, are we the quantum computers? Is the human mind the quantum computer? Yeah, we are. I'm sure of it. But it's an interesting concept because most people the word quantum makes their eyes cross and they don't understand it. And I don't always. I mean, I still get confused on things, and I have to give a shout out to the person that makes me always go, I wonder if I do grasp that, because they always ask. But about us, and it's really good because it makes me think and makes me wonder, who do I need to go for an answer on something I may not get? You're a person for a lot of those, but you do such a good job of explaining these things that are really hard. I mean, really hard.
Tough concepts all the way around. It really is sometimes. I think a point I should make, this is not bragging, it's just one point to keep in mind. Some people say, well, what do these two women know? We both have master's degrees. Okay? So, and I earned mine by independent study. I didn't sit in a classroom. I'd pick a course up here or pick up a course there. And when I started finally writing my papers, I got my degree. And the bottom line is I was a poor kid and I had to go and it took me 40 years to get my bachelor's degree. Okay. And that's because I couldn't go to school like everybody else. Okay. But the thing was, it didn't mean I wasn't smart. And the deal is I chose to research these other questions.
Yes.
Let's go to Eric Von Daniken for a minute.
Oh, let's do.
When his book first came out back in the late 60s, I was in high school, and my mother and I were both into this topic of UFOs. Okay, we're estranged now, and I can still call her up and say, would you like to hear a good UFO story? And she'll take that phone call. Otherwise, they won't talk to me. Okay? All right. So you get the ideas. There's some things you can bridge these things with. There are no college degrees in UFOlogy. UFOlogy right now is a multidisciplinary field, much like many other fields. When I was in corporate security at Lockheed Martin, it's not guards and fences. I was the guy and gal. There was a couple gals. We were hunting viruses. We were hunting hackers that broke in or tried to break in. Okay, that's what we did. Okay, and that's where I got my really good analysis skills, because I could build analysis about looking at huge firewall logs, that type of thing. That's how we got to work with big data. And what Linda and I decided to do was, let's apply big data. Amazon uses it. Google uses it. Why can't we use it to research UFOs? What can we find in the big data? So this takes thought process. Linda and I had our share of arguments in the living room discussing how we were working with the data, but they were friendly scientific arguments. Okay. And
conversational arguments.
There has to be a dialogue, and some of those dialogues get pretty heated. But we got to the bottom of it all for the way we wanted to look at it. And we're both in the process of, we're at that point. She's got the book she's going to write, what will probably be her last book on the topic. The last book I'm probably going to publish on it. I'm not going to do this year's data. We said we were only going to do a 20-year study. Okay, and that's all we've done. And we've gleaned a lot of information out of it, and we know the model. So that's all we ever set out to do, was measure the phenomena, not prove they're real, not gather evidence. We just simply wanted to study the scale of the phenomena. And the bottom line on the phenomena, I know we got time for this real quick. Oh, where's my cheat sheet here? Hang on, I got to pull my cheat sheet up here. I'm 71 years old, so sometimes my head drops bits here. Okay, the drivers for UFOs. Population, yes, it is a driver. Temperate weather is a driver. The yearly patterns by month are different in northern states than they are in middle-level states. Okay, a deep south state like Alabama, it's a very different monthly pattern for UFOs. Get down into deep south states like Florida and Texas and Georgia, that type of thing, and there's actually a dip in the middle of the summer because it's too bloody hot to be outside. Leisure time is a major driver. People say, well, what time of day? Okay, we found out that 75 to 80% of the sightings happen between 6 o'clock at night and 11:30 at night. The other 16 hours of the day only amounts to, from about 1 o'clock in the morning to about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, amounts to only about 25% of the sightings. Who knew? And then when you look at a county associated with a major city like Cleveland, Ohio, you go out into the suburbs, that's where the sightings are after 6 o'clock at night. It's leisure time and hours of darkness. You're either on your back deck, you're out walking the dog, you're outside having a smoke, you're out on the back deck having a drink with the old lady, whatever the deal is. Okay, but those are the driving factors that we've observed. Now, there are things called influencers. Now, not every state has them, but my buddy Tom Conwell up in Troy, New York, I think you may have had him on the show.
A time or two.
Paranormal guy, but he took our data and he found out that they haunt proximity to around water. Okay, so when our first book came out, people were saying, well, wait a minute, Texas has twice the population of Florida. How come Florida's number 2? Florida had 1,200 miles of coastline and Texas had 460. Okay, yes. Or something on that order. And if you look at a map of like the census map of like the Great Lakes states. The states touching the Great Lakes had sightings in the many thousands for 15 years or 20 years, and moved 2 states away, and it falls into the low hundreds. Okay. Yes. Proximity to toxic ecosystems. We're not talking nuclear power plants. Nuclear power plants are not the problem. Toxic waste dumps, dead coal mines, dead oil fields, dead gas fields, dead strip mines, Superfund toxic polluted lakes or rivers, that type of thing. It's not just every polluted river. We're talking to super sites, okay? They're very interested in. And if you talk to experiencers, they'll tell you, oh, wow, I came back spiritual. And, oh, by the way, ET told us to take care of our planet.
Yeah.
And basically what ET keeps telling us, don't pee in your nest. Excuse my French, sorry.
That's okay.
High media reports. Blue Book discovered this function. They thought it was copycat reporting. You have a sighting on Tuesday, it makes the press on Wednesday, and then there's follow-on sightings on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and people think, well, they're just copycatting all this other stuff. We went into the National UFO Reporting Center and noticed that on these hotspot days after it was reported, the days following it, people probably read in the paper, oh, wow, you can report this stuff to MUFON or National UFO Reporting Center. So maybe I should tell them that one from 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago or 2 years ago or 20 years ago. It's retro reporting for the most part. And then the last one is a thing called the generational effect. Someplace that has a lot of sightings rather regularly, there seems to be a cultural imperative because Grandpa told us about the Battle of L.A. in 1942. Maybe if we look up, we'll see something. Or Mom and Dad told us about the Phoenix Lights. Maybe if we look up, we'll see something. And that's what it seems to be. There are, and this is where the people who want an exotic explanation for all this stuff say to me, but Cheryl, those are mundane reasons. We're looking for something exotic. And it's not. It's as much about human activity to see these things as it is anything.
Absolutely. I was told when I very first started doing interviews on this topic, I was told it's the dog walkers, the cigarette smokers, the people that aren't allowed to smoke in their home that are seeing this. And, I will vouch for that because I may not be walking dogs, but I am outside with them before we go to bed. If one of them has a need, during the night, I'm a hammock layer. If there's a meteor shower, I'm outside. And I have found that they're drawn to meteor showers based on my experience, and they will show up for that.
The dog walkers and dog walkers and smokers are considered reliable sightings. A number of MUFON investigators look at a month's worth of sightings and they search for dog or smoke. The reason, because they're out there day in and day out, they're considered a reliable observer. We're almost at the end of the show here.
We are almost at the end of the show. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. This has been one of the best full-on data dumps that we've done in a long time. And for our listeners, this is going to be available. You'll be able to find it on iHeart, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're real big in India with GeoSavan. You can find us, and you can go through this at your leisure to pull this information. I've got a notebook page that is a full-size notebook, and I am out of room. So I know it was hard to keep up. And, every time we get together to have this conversation, it's a great thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to talk with you. It was great seeing you out in Palm Springs. And when you want to talk the woo-woo stuff, bring me back, and we'll talk the metaphysical woo-woo stuff with UFOs.
That works for me. I appreciate you. And for everyone listening, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us here on UNX. Y'all be sure and enjoy all of our shows. And I will see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel.